Hello, good evening, welcome. We're going to wait a few minutes for people to arrive. Got some people coming in the room and hopefully some people joining us. If you are on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know if my sound is okay. Give me a quick chat, a hello, a thumbs up if you can hear me. And we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Welcome. Welcome. If you're just coming on, please say hello in the chat. I want to make sure my sound is okay. Let me know if you can hear me. Oh, hi, Dina. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Welcome. If you're watching this on the replay, then maybe right now, as I'm speaking, you are taking a lovely stroll on this beautiful autumn evening. It's really quite gorgeous outside now that the rain has passed and the wind has moved through. There's a little sweet, settled nature. I'm going to play with the lighting for a minute. Thank you, Dina. It is not plugged in. Hello. Hi, Musa. Welcome. We're live on YouTube as we speak. All right. All right. Welcome, welcome. We're still just getting settled in the room. We'll start in just a moment. Thanks for joining if you're just now tuning in. So good to be here. Such a delight and a privilege. So we're going to begin, as we do each week, with just some quiet centering. Hello, Marla. Welcome. You have not missed anything. All right. Excellent to have you all here. So take some time now to get settled, to feel some sort of, get in touch with some sort of physical sense of support. And whether that is the ground beneath you or the seat or cushion beneath you, perhaps a wall behind you, anything that feels valuable right in this moment in terms of finding a way to be comfortably alert. And what works one day doesn't necessarily work another day. Some days are pull out all the blankets, the walls, the floor, the bed kind of days. And other days are just the ground will do. And that is simply the nature of existence in all of its changing form. So recognize the changing forms that have the potential to either throw you off balance or to provide support. And then tune into your breath. Notice the very next inhale that arrives. And the very next exhale that follows. Notice the spaces in between, the length and the depth and the breadth, the depth and the breadth of the breath. And in the verticality and the horizontality of the breath is space. So feel yourself as part of that space. And let your mind, your conscious present moment thinking, land itself right in the midst of that space. And maybe that's another or one way of considering what it means to be centered. To occupy in the midst of vast space that surrounds our consciousness. And the more we can occupy that sense of center, to be consciously in the midst of that space up and down and side to side and all around us, then perhaps the more capable we are, and maybe even more willing we are to start to expand our sense of what space our consciousness can possibly occupy. And the value of this is incalculable, because when we recognize our capacity to occupy a space that goes beyond our own physical form, then we get out of our heads and we get, out of our ego. It's in that occupation of vaster space where empathy and compassion live, where selfish needs diminish and generosity thrives. We can't get to those places until we find ourselves at center within our own space. And there we work to find ease, softness. So if it's difficult to stay there centered, then consider what derives from there: softness, ease, quiet. And upon the consideration of those qualities, if we think them, perhaps we can get a little touch of a feel for them, a little glimpse, a little spark. That we can hang the next breath on. A little taste of soft, little spark of ease inside of the space of an inhale and an exhale. Begin to lengthen the next few breaths in and out. And then begin to return your awareness to your immediate surroundings. And if your eyes are closed, feel free to open them. Feel free to wriggle and stretch a little bit if you've been holding a fairly still seat or posture. So, when I was a kid and I didn't want to go to bed, and I had exhausted all of the excuses of I'm hungry or my stomach hurts or I have to go to the bathroom or tell me another story. And I had a house full of parents and older brothers who would indulge me to a point and then no more. Time for bed. And I was forced to lie in my bed with the lights off, maybe a little night light, and just lie there. And I was a kid who was afraid of everything. So I was, there were definitely monsters under the bed and goblins in the closet and ghosts outside the window. I mean, I was sure of it. So there was a little bit of fear, and I had a big room all to myself. It wasn't always comfortable. So I trained myself to have what I used to call in my head a thought. I would say, okay, it's time for a thought. And those thoughts were fantasies, like daydreams, sort of, except night dreams, except awake night dreams. And so I would construct these scenarios where I was with all my friends running through a field and picking flowers or playing house, or when I was a little older, and I still had this habit that I had learned would help me fall asleep. They turned into, like my friends and I are at the mall and I get to buy anything I want. And, then it turned to, oh, and while we were at the mall, we ran into that boy that I liked. And then I got to like hold hands with the boy, so depending on my age, I would have age appropriate thoughts. And it continued as a sort of a well-formed response that I learned to calm my nervous system, to allow me to rest and to give me a little more peace. And I would have a sort of like in my head, the construction of this fantasy would definitely like have a start, a middle, an end. It would have characters and plots and conflict and resolution. But I knew that it worked because I very rarely ever got to the end before I fell asleep. So it was a great tool that I learned to train my consciousness, and it helped not just relax me and not just to put me to sleep, not just allay my fears, but to truly find a sort of like an optimism and a source of inspiration. And I knew the difference between reality and these thoughts that I constructed, these movies that I filmed in my head. So often these daydreams, if we can call them daydreams, no matter what time of day they occur, they're benign escapes, and they're true antidotes to the things that are causing us stress or anxiety or fears. There's the famous short story called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty by James Thurber, where Walter Mitty has these, he's got a bit of a naggy wife, and often his response to the mundane frustrations of daily living, with or without the nagging of the wife, is to construct these big, bold, heroic fantasies of himself, where he becomes like a surgeon who saves somebody's life, or an Air Force pilot who wins the battle and saves other lives, or the famous lawyer in a dramatic courtroom scene. And this is how he mitigates the humdrum of his, what he perceives to be a small, meaningless life. Benign, all of these constructions of fantasy in our head, but they're not always benign. And sometimes they are obstacles on the path. And the Yoga Sutras enumerates these obstacles. And one of them is, in Sanskrit, the word is Bhranti Darshana. Darshana means truth. There are 6 darshanas, the systems of Indian philosophy. Yoga is one of those 6. And Bhranti means daydream. It also means clouded truth, or misperception, or misapprehension. And when they're not benign, the state of Bhranti Darshana is frequently the the result of our own base emotions of fear, of anger, of loneliness, of insecurity. And what happens in these cases so frequently is we are simply projecting our own lack of self-worth or need for validation onto other people. So we start to make up stories about, well, that person doesn't like me, or I must have said something to offend them, or I'm never going to be good enough for them. And so they respond this way to me. And it's not helpful because ultimately when we ascribe uncharitable states of mind to other people, we're the ones who suffer. I remember going out to dinner with two friends both of whom I am close with individually, and the other two know each other peripherally through me. And the three of us went out to dinner once. I thought we had a lovely evening. Right? I come home to a text from one saying, was so-and-so okay? Like, I don't think she really likes me. I think when I said that thing, I don't think she liked it. I shouldn't have said it. Was that okay to say? I don't know. Like, do you think it's okay? And then a text from the other friend saying, so here's the deal. I didn't want to spoil our dinner, but just before I met up with you both, I got word that my uncle is dying. So the one friend has made up an entire story about how she's not worthy in the eyes of the other friend, when all the other friend was doing was struggling to be present, to not burden us with her upset. But it got turned into this other meaning. That's a clouded truth. That's an obstruction of clarity, a made-up story that didn't start with the uncle dying friend's treatment of her or affect that evening. It started way before that for the other friend. And it gets manifested. And because when we're operating from places of need to be validated or places of lack of our own self-affirmation, then we're going to be looking for validation of that negative story. And believe me, I don't have to tell, this is not news to anybody. If you are looking for proof that the world doesn't like you, you will find it. It's not hard because it's a cruel, cruel world. And we all are walking around carrying our backpacks full of sorrows and regrets. And so if you go picking through someone's backpack, you'll find sorrow and regret, but it won't be named or explained. It will simply have your name on it because you are the one looking for it. So always give the benefit of the doubt. I think this is one way around it, is to assume that there's nothing wrong with us. There must be something troubling this other person. It's 99.9% of the time. That's a mathematical calculation, of course, based on deep sociological study. Obviously, it's just an expression. It is almost always about the other person and not about us. Because people don't think about other people nearly as much as they're thinking about themselves. And this is just human nature. This is a relic of our need for simple survival skills before the prefrontal cortex was fully developed for the emotions of compassion and equanimity and giving the benefit of the doubt. So it's just the truth of the matter that so frequently we forget to assume best intentions. And tapping into a place of compassion or empathy, even if we don't know the thing that we're empathizing with, is not our first reflex. And this is when these clouded truths really get in the way, and they throw a wrench in our ability to feel at ease. The Bertrand Russell, the 20th century mathematician and logician and philosopher, has this whole premise on the difference between belief and truth. And he says that so often truth is relative. That belief is relative, but truth requires proof. And here's another example, back to the benign. Again, with the friends. I went for a walk with a friend one morning. And I don't know, we were probably out for an hour. We walked on a trail. You might call it a hike. We get home. We have a mutual friend who this is a different set of friends. We saw the friend later. And the third friend, who was not on the walk/hike with us, was laughing so hard with the two of us later, because she said that that she heard from that friend that we had gone on a nice leisurely stroll that morning, whereas I had just finished telling her that we went on this hike up hills and down hills and all around, and I almost died. It was so hard. So I believed that it was a really challenging, strenuous outing, where my friend who I was walking with, who was clearly in much better shape, believed that it was an easy stroll, a walk in the park, a cakewalk. And this is an example of how beliefs are not to be confused with truth. Because what was the truth there? The truth was, we went out onto this trail. We moved our feet on the earth. We were gone for this many minutes, and then we returned. That's the truth. Truth does not have an opinion. Truth does not involve adjectives or emotions. Bertrand Russell says that there are 3 points, 3 requirements or steps along the way to distinguish truth from falsehood. And the first is, you have to admit that the opposite of truth is falsehood. You have to admit that if something is true, then by definition, its opposite is false. The falsehood would have been that we didn't go on this walk. The second one is that we have to recognize that truth is a function of belief, and it's more than mere matter. So truth supersedes the physicality of fact. And the third thing is that there's no internal quality to belief. So the truth lies in something that's outside of belief. I believe that somebody's mad at me, but the truth of that is going to rely on an honest admission of that other person that they are in fact mad at me, or to turn that belief into a falsehood and say, I'm not mad at you, I just found out my uncle's dying. So there needs to be some correspondence between belief and fact. A belief that one is unworthy or unlovable or not good enough at any something is not enough to make it true. And this state of Bhranti Darshana, of clouded truth, happens to us and puts these obstacles on our path when we confuse belief with truth. Our conscious thinking mind does not create truth. It creates a belief. That correspondence, right, between belief and fact relies upon a present moment awareness. To say, these are what my senses are perceiving right here, right now. And those are the things that I can know to be true and rest on. All of the rest of it is belief that's up for debate, that could turn out to be real, and that in all likelihood, if it's coming from a place of lack, is going to turn out to be false. So let's do a little practice with some sensory awareness to train up this capacity for getting in touch with reality right here, right now. And if we can remember then to have these touchstones of the sense organs, then they can help us come back into a place of understanding that there's not a monster under the bed. There are not goblins in the closet. There are not ghosts outside the window, unless they're friendly ghosts who are there to hold your hand and help you have your thought and rest with ease. So start with just look around you and see what's in the room. Maybe there are other people. Maybe there are walls, carpet, or flooring of some sort. Take in the light. Take in the shadows. Take in the sight of your own body as you can see whatever parts you can see in your clothing, in your skin, in your hair, if you can see it. And then if it feels comfortable to let your eyes fall partially closed or perhaps all the way closed, you can do that. And begin to listen for the ambient sounds in your surrounding. Maybe there's somebody else in your home who's watching TV or listening to music or rattling around in another room. Maybe they're rattling around right next to you in the room. We're here in the studio and there's class happening in the other room across the hall, so we can hear little glimpses of voice. Can you hear traffic outside your window or nature, birds or trees rustling in the breeze? Maybe there are animals making sound. Take in everything that you hear as part of the sensory landscape of this present moment. Feel whatever you feel touching your skin. Or the clothing that's surrounding your skin. You can feel surfaces around you. Sometimes it helps to tap some part of your body to make sure that you feel and recognize your full presence right here, right now. What can you smell in the air around you. Do you have a taste lingering on your tongue, on your palate, from the last thing you ate or drank? These sensory touchstones can be pretty powerfully calming if we recognize them without an opinion. So, seeing your surrounding without saying, I've got to dust under that table. Right? Tasting whatever the last thing you ate is and saying, I don't want to eat that thing again, or I can't wait to eat more of that thing. Without the opinion, the recognition of the sensory experience alone can take us right in to that place of center. And sometimes, when we notice the mind drifting away, when we recognize the last thought we had just in that moment of drift, we can ask, was that related to my sensory experience right now? And if it was, it could be that something in the sense realm triggered a memory. Smell is a powerful trigger for memory. Music, another powerful trigger for memory. And then recognize the memory that was triggered. And you can sort through, am I remembering the fact of the matter? Or am I indulging in my emotional response to that event? And then we are off and running into Bhranti Darshana. We are off and running into, oh yeah, that time when I said that stupid thing. And I just know that everybody learned in that moment how dumb I am. Right? Bring it back. Bring it back to the senses. That thing happened. We were there. I don't know what anybody was thinking. But here I am again, right here, right now. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel, taste, and smell? Sometimes what gets triggered is the memory of our favorite fearful prediction of something terrible that might happen in the future. A memory of a prediction. We have these loops too. The fear of failure, the fear of loss, the fear of rejection. They turn into ingrained memories of a thought pattern, even though they haven't existed yet in reality. Come back to the senses, come back to the moment. We don't know what will happen next year or tomorrow or 5 minutes from now. Come back to now. Just a couple more minutes of quiet breath, recognition of sensory awareness that is related only to this particular moment. Even if your eyes are closed, notice the remnant of sight behind your eyelids. And continue to receive with ease and grace the ambient sound, the relative touch, the taste and smell of this moment's existence. And then gently bring your awareness back into this moment. Take in your surroundings once again, return your awareness. And if your eyes have been closed, perhaps open them. Sometimes outside forces are to blame for our misapprehensions, our misperceptions, our clouded view of things. And I'm going to suggest as a metaphor the story, the plot line that happens in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Maybe you're familiar. In a nutshell, there are some mischievous fairies afoot in the forest, and one of them in particular, who goes by the name of Puck, sprinkles some love potion. And the people who receive the love potion on their eyes when they're sleeping, the next time they wake up, the potion has determined that they will fall in love with the first one that they see upon waking. And so this wreaks havoc in 4 young people who are supposed to have certain romances, and then the romance lines get crossed. And then there's also the queen of the fairies, Titania, who ends up falling in love with a donkey by mistake because of Puck's antics. So, well, it's really because of the king's jealousy, but that's a whole different story. That's a different talk for another night. Suffice to say that these are outside forces that have created these delusions in the characters. And I'm going to read you some Shakespeare. Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact. One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That is the madman, the lover, all as frantic. So Shakespeare knew something about delusions. He knew something about the effect of our environment on the fantasies that we construct in our minds. And I'm going to take a big leap here and suggest that the love potion in Midsummer Night's Dream might be a little bit prescient and could be a metaphor for modern life and all the ways in which we are fooled into misapprehending events and each other. Social media is a potion, and it distorts what we see and what we think we believe. And it's all over the news right now in this moment as I speak about the way the algorithms in social media feed us content that reinforce our basest emotions, our anger and our fear. That's what we're fed. And the more we engage with that anger and that fear, the more content we are given to reinforce it. So our beliefs get wildly distorted, and our ability to think rationally is heavily clouded. And I don't have the answer. I'd be richer than Mark Zuckerberg if I did. But I will say that in the short term, on an individual level, I know that the answer is to tune in, to breathe slow and steady, and to be in the here and now. I'm not a fan of entirely disconnecting from the world because I think it's critical that we know what's going on, but it's 100 times more critical that we talk to each other in real life, that we get a sense of where we're standing and sitting and how we're walking and moving and communicating, that is grounded in the sensory reality of the present moment. Here's another example that literally just happened to me 2 hours ago as I was getting ready to come here tonight. And this involves how technology can distort our misapprehensions, our clouded truths. So I was out walking my dog, as I do all the time. And he's taking a poop in somebody's yard. And I don't have a bag with me to pick up the poop. And so I'm like, no, this is terrible. This is like the worst dog walking mistake you can make. And so I'm looking around because I'm trying to find something in the immediate environment that I can use to pick up this poop. I don't see anything. I'm looking for another dog walker, another person with a dog, because usually they'll have two. I had none. Somebody's bound to have two. I can borrow one. I walk like back and forth. I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything about it. I'm too far from home to run back and grab it. So I just keep walking. So as I'm walking away, I'm thinking, there's going to be a video of me from their Ring doorbell camera. It's going to be all over next door. People are going to be shouting about the woman who didn't pick up the poop. She just stood there. She just looked around and walked away, and she didn't even care, right? Because how would the camera know that I cared very much, that I felt awfully, that I wanted to do something about it, but there was nothing to be done? So, I'll let you know how it turns out. I might be in grave danger. My reputation might be ruined as we speak. But this is the love potion of modern technology. It can amplify mistakes and misunderstandings. So here's the irony in one solution that I know of. Because the variabilities of human nature are so infinitely uncountable and unpredictable and uncontrollable, quantitatively impossible to rely on. The very thing that can jumpstart us out of our misapprehension has the same ingredients of the misapprehension itself, and that's our ability to daydream. It's our ability to think creatively, to watch a silent video of a woman standing there leaving her dog's poop in somebody's yard and walking away and thinking, maybe she just forgot her bag. The ability to think creatively enough to have sat through dinner with somebody who wasn't smiley and happy and responsive to us and think, maybe they just got terrible news. So there could be as many reasons for somebody not picking up the dog poop, not smiling at us through dinner, not doing whatever behavior we're seeking to validate our own self-worth, as there are human beings on earth. And if we can get creative and open-minded, literally enough to consider all those possibilities, to consider that even if there's a goblin in the closet, it could be turned into our best imaginary friend, then we might be okay. We might be a little happier. We might be at a little more ease with each other. So we'll do another 10-minute sit where we're just inviting possibility of empathy, compassion, that things are not what they seem so frequently. And if things seem to be reflections of our own insecurities, then there's probably more to the story. So we can cast our own little versions of potions on each other to recognize our simple, vulnerable state. Let it always start with a recognition of your very next breath. Remember to look and to listen and to feel and taste and smell what's immediately present. Find yourself with a conscious awareness that is central to the space that your breath occupies. Up and down, side to side, all around. Breathe with recognition of your mind occupying the very middle space. Maybe you can pinpoint a place right beneath your heart or at the front mid spine. Maybe you feel more centered at the base of your pelvis, or perhaps at the base of your throat. Wherever it is, you can locate presence. And this helps to ground us in reality, in the truth of this moment. Just another couple of minutes. And count the next 5 breaths. Trace the next one in and follow it back out 4 more times. And invite some gentle movement back into your body. Reorient yourself to this moment in particular. And if you'd like to, gather up your palms in front of your heart and perhaps bow your head in service of clear perception that makes room for compassion and empathy, and that helps us move from places of ease and love and contentment and willingness to be vulnerable with each other, willingness to make room for each other's vulnerabilities. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you soon.